Hey everyone, my name is Kevin. I was an urban planning major. I did my business school degree here in LA, and I happen to be living about 10 minutes away from this lovely airport, like many of you may have seen behind me with the theme building, LAX. And the world is coming to this city as it prepares for the Olympics in 2028. And so many of you probably are thinking about this city, but also think about it with a sense of hesitation because I think the city gets a really bad rap from the tourism industry. It's not a Barcelona. It's not a Tokyo. People deem it as ugly. People deem it as there's no urban heart. It's a self-centered place, and all there is are influencers. Perhaps you could argue there's some truth to that, but I want to show you this city through the mind and eyes of this very interesting book and the man that wrote it, Rainer Banham, back in 1971. He published this book that really challenged architects and urbanists around the world who dismissed LA as really having no character and being a complete soulless type of place that was sprawling all over the place. And this guy really brought this notion of seeing LA through the mindset of the moving vehicle, through buildings that seemingly have no function, but are actually purposely built for what people do in LA, which is to drive around, to enjoy the sights, to enjoy places through a new means, rather than what many cities have traditionally been built for. For this reason, I want to give you this taste of LA through Banham's eyes with a modern flavor, and give you another way of seeing this city in a way that no guidebook or website can explain to you. Here's how Banham mentally organized LA. He created 4 distinct urban ecologies. The first we're going to cover is Autopia, something car related. The second, Surfurbia, suburbia. The third, the Foothills, or mountainous areas that generally are to the north of LA. And the fourth is a really interesting term, the plains of Id, something that doesn't belong to any of the first 3 ecologies that I just mentioned. So follow along and allow us to show you LA like you've never seen before.
Welcome you guys to LAX, Los Angeles. Please remain seated with your seatbelts really fasten your get your seatbelts.
All right, well, you've made it to LAX, hopefully, and if so, congratulations. Now, how do you get out of this airport? Let's start with the basics. So behind me is the culmination of many years of public transportation-focused development that LAX and the city have been working on to get people in and out of the airport. And this behind me is the transportation center that is adjacent to LAX. When the people mover is opened, and hopefully by the time you watch this video, it will be, people can get in and out of the terminals to get to this station, where then you can catch the C and K lines of the metro, which is rail transportation that can get you to a good number of places throughout the city. Still not every place that we really want to envision for you in this video. And because of this, I do want to point your attention to what Rainer Banham coined as part of this overall ecosystem known as Autopia. So check this thing out across the street and you'll see what I mean. Yeah, this big behemoth, that is the LAX Consolidated Rental Car Facility. It is the largest of its kind in the world. I believe it has capacity for approximately 21,000 vehicles. And unfortunately for many Angelinos, yes, public transportation infrastructure is growing, but for the most part, a lot of things, including really the overall urban landscape, has been designed around the private automobile as a means of getting in and out of places that you need to go, whether it's to see the sights, to see friends and family, or maybe to see something that grabs your attention. So Rainer Banham really coined this notion of autopia, the state of being in a vehicle in which many things we'll see in this guide are based out of in order to really see the true LA. So just getting out of LA, keep your eyes and ears peeled in the car. Maybe if you don't have a driver's license and you're on an Uber to your destination in LA, that's okay too, but just remember to keep your eyes and ears peeled around LA, because within this context of Autopia or car culture, a lot of things are built and designed to be viewed from the lens of a moving vehicle. And you might be surprised by what you encounter from a moving car while you're going from place to place throughout LA. So in this case, it's really, the journey is just as important as the destination in LA. And let me show you one example to come here. Even just leaving the airport, there's one famous monument that certainly, in my opinion, embodies the Autopia that Rainer Banham is describing. And that's Randy's Donuts. All right, Randy's Donuts. So again, why do you notice Randy's Donuts? Because it's so apparent from the size and sheer monstrosity of that sign. And yes, you could argue it is completely cheesy and it's just this nasty looking donut that's been there for decades, but that's what has lured people to stop and grab a donut. And you probably have seen this in guides somewhere introducing you, or maybe a friend was saying, hey, I'm hungry, let's grab some donuts, because it's so noticeable from the street. And that was literally what the whole notion of Autopia is. It's about built structures that from the eyes of a moving vehicle, and you're moving around at high speeds, you are able to notice things that are a little bit different, a little bit quirky, a little bit special, a little bit odd, stuff that lures your attention. And thankfully, some of this stuff also has tied itself to great food that makes LA what it is. In a car-dependent city, you actually find that when there's clusters of people standing around someplace like this, which one could argue is a bit of a European community building type practice, then suddenly people are like, wait a minute, something interesting must be going on here. So one of my recommendations in LA is probably if there's a bunch of people standing around someplace, there's probably something interesting to it from a social perspective that may be worthy of checking out. Well, speaking of donuts, getting a little hungry myself. Shall we get in the line and grab some for ourselves? Okay, so we're now on the LA freeway, which really is the crux of what Rainer Banham has described as one of those four ecologies. Autopia is really this heightened state of mind that you're in when you're traveling along LA's various freeways. I might as well talk to you about some survival tips, because most of the time traveling between places in LA, you'll probably spend your time on a freeway like this, the 405. So first things first, this is more a shout out to my colleagues in Europe who are way more used to rigid driving rules and a real sense of awareness around the rules of the road. There aren't really traffic cameras here that are based on speed. It's really based on this, yes, we're in America and only someone putting a radar gun and enforcing me is the way that I get caught. So for Europeans, this might sound a bit strange because there are speed cameras everywhere. The UK has those average speed cameras. You're not really going to encounter that here, so you'll find a lot of people going way above the speed limit. And this unfortunately leads to what is, in my opinion, one of the pet peeves of driving around LA and California in general, which is a lack of a real rigidity around lane choice. So even among other states in the US, the keep right except to pass is something that is really strictly enforced in other states. But in California, what's interesting, now I'm not a lawyer, by the way, nor am I representative of the California Highway Patrol, but I will say that the laws are more based around your relative speed of travel. Are you hogging and actually impeding the flow of somebody else? And because of that vague relative speed definition, you'll find that many people interpret what they see as, I'm on the left lane because I am going at speed. This is a bit of a something that's to be interpreted individually. And because of that, you'll find that many people are hogging the left lane, unfortunately, like this car right here that's on the leftmost lane. I would say, whether or not drivers are doing this, do yourself a favor for LA, and if someone's hogging you from behind and you're on the leftmost lane, give them a pass, move aside, let them do their thing. Those are my 2 cents, at least, about survival of LA's Autopia. Well, at some point, all freeways must come to an end. And thankfully in LA, the beach is a great reason why freeways come to an end, like the 10, for instance. Behind me is the city of Santa Monica and its pier. Many of you have seen this pier featured on guides to LA. And the Angelino would come here and say, wait, hold on a second though. Santa Monica is a distinctive city from that of the rest of LA. And that is true, and we'll talk about exclusivity later in the program, but the beach is also this extended state of mind that really encompasses LA and its surroundings. And what I think is really interesting about beaches in LA in general is compare this to Central Park in New York City, where you have a green space in the middle of a big city, famous monuments, statues of interesting people, museums, great places to stroll around. We don't really see these types of spaces in LA. Unfortunately, a lot of green space in LA is really dotted by golf courses, and you'll see what I mean if you just go on Google Street View and you see, oh, there's a green spot there, let me zoom in, golf course. Let me zoom into another green space, that's another golf course. And so the beach is really the true spot in LA where people of all shapes and sizes can enjoy nature. And for that matter, you have to think about appreciating public space in a bit of a different way when you're here because of this. The beach, at the end of where the Pacific meets the city, is where we really enjoy public spaces as Angelinos. Santa Monica is among many cities that hug along this 70-mile or so long coastline, where a lot of what Angelinos experience in the rest of the city come to an end. What I mean by that is the commercialism, the car dependencies, because all things end at the beach, including parking lots and stores. This is where Angelinos start to embrace the natural world and elements that are less commercial than what the rest of the LA area represents. And so for that reason, these cities form a common identity around this sense of being less material. And I know it's sometimes hard to believe when you look around Santa Monica and you see all the expensive homes and hotels that line the beachfront, or at least as close to the beachfront as possible. That very strand of beach that you end up accessing is again where the democratization begins. So that's what common thread that leads all these different cities to the same mindset, and what Rainer Banham, I believe, really coined when he mentioned Surfurbia. Now, when you're in a city like Santa Monica, you would think that with all the attention it gets, there's also the human and retail activity that comes along with it. However, what did I mention about Surfurbia and what Rainer Banham described in these cities? There's a bit of a rejection of the commercialization and other things that are quite prevalent in the rest of LA. And so for that reason, this area has been a bit volatile, the promenade, as people would describe it behind me, because of the fact that it's attempting to mix the retail and the commercialization with what really is instead, at its heart, this embrace of the natural and a life in suburbia that is about appreciating Mother Nature and the extensive shoreline that's associated with it. So because of this contrast of the two, a lot of places like these have seen their ups and downs over the years. And this is why City of Santa Monica, for instance, is trying to do more to try and bring people back. But I would argue what they really need to bring back is the appreciation and a sense of the lifestyle that allows people to appreciate Santa Monica, which is how do we allow more people to live in Santa Monica and embrace that beach lifestyle that's associated with it. Now, of course, Santa Monica is one of the more well-known cities that comprise of Surfurbia. And from the looks of it behind me, I think a lot of people are here too to immerse themselves in that classic quintessential beach experience. But may I remind you that there's more than 70 plus miles of sand outside of Santa Monica that you can explore and see for your own, and maybe have your own slice of beach. And I just want to open up the book and actually show you how many other beach cities outside of Santa Monica alone you can explore for yourself. And the beauty of all of these cities is many of them have their own distinct flavor, personality to them. Have some time to yourself researching different beaches and their personalities, what types of people are around, and see what fits your interests best. And what I'm trying to say here is there are many, many different places within Surfurbia that you can check out for yourself to immerse yourself in that Southern California beach experience, with avoiding kind of the crowds that we're seeing behind us. In sharp contrast to what we've seen in Surfurbia as the democratization of accessible natural landscapes, I'm now driving on Mulholland Drive in an area that Rainer Banham has identified as the Foothills. Any of these mountainous areas where you see exclusivity all around. It's the complete opposite of what Surfurbia represents. There are so many homes here that you and I can't really have access to. A lot of the famous Hollywood stars have homes here that you can't have access to unless you're in the know. And even more in a sad way, the Hollywood sign, the most famous of things in LA, is also inaccessible. And you'll find that if you look it up on how to get to the sign, a lot of people will tell you, you can't park around there, you can't access it. And so I think this is really the can't versus the can that really embodies what this area known as the Foothills is all about. It's the exact opposite of Surfurbia. This whole notion of can't and exclusivity really gives us a sense of wanting to see the forbidden. And I think this is the rationale for a lot of the Star Tours. The bus had already passed, but you can see lots of different vans doing tours of exclusive celebrity homes and exclusive this and exclusive that, and this is where this Hollywood star lives. And I think it's, again, all because we want to have access to the exclusive, and what brings people here to the Foothills area. If you come to the Foothills unprepared or you don't know a Hollywood star, you'll find that accessing this area is quite difficult. Thankfully though, we're now in a period of time in LA where a lot of things with just a simple reservation can be actually your open portal into accessing the Foothills area. And behind me is the Greystone Estate, which you can actually make reservations in advance to visit through the Beverly Hills website that offers the ability to do so. Or you can also book an Airbnb, and this is where modern visitation of this area is quite feasible. Just need to look through and see, maybe you might want to get yourself a room for a night or stay a little bit longer in someone's guest house who may be living up in this area. So thankfully, this whole exclusivity is not as exclusive thanks to the ability to book reservations in advance or find lodging options in advance as well. My night tonight. My night. Can't afford to stay at places like the Beverly Hills Hotel? Well, thankfully, with again some advanced preparation, you can get a little bit of a slice of what it's like to be in the Foothills. There are plenty of spots you can book in advance at the Polo Lounge, which is one of my personal favorites inside the hotel. You don't even need to stay in the hotel to experience it. All you need to do is go to their website and book a time slot. And these are some great ways that you can enjoy the ambiance of the Foothills without actually having to pay the price to do so. So we're now driving through Olympic Boulevard within the landscape that is being characterized by Banham as the Plains of Id. And this area is oftentimes easily dismissed when it comes to people's idea of what to visit in LA. People can describe this as, well, it's just a wasteland of streets with nothing to do, nothing to see. But thankfully, over the decades since the book was published by Banham back in 1971, a lot of immigrant groups have really shaped the area that we would define as the Plains of Id into places that are much more interesting and are actually becoming emerging places that are becoming destinations of their own within LA's tourist landscape. And this includes an area previously quite unknown to most visitors to LA, Koreatown, which has become now a destination in and of itself thanks to some interesting culinary opportunities, interesting nightlife opportunities. And the same thing goes for many places outside of Koreatown. This can be Thai Town, for instance, Little Ethiopia, or some of the street carts that you can encounter that are emblematic of the Hispanic and Central American communities that also dictate part of the Los Angeles landscape. So come on with me and I'll show you some of the areas that are emblematic of this emerging Plains of Id. No longer really a plain landscape anymore, but really a place that you can visit to shape your own LA excursion in a way that is very dynamic and forward-looking, that doesn't embody the typical areas that would encompass part of the touristic landscape of LA. Now, speaking of places where you could easily miss just by driving around the Plains of Id, supposedly a no man's land in which nothing is special or interesting, right? Well, when you said that, you might have just missed Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. There you have it. A great example, in my opinion, of the dynamic forces that are at play in the Plains of Id is this restaurant right behind me, known as Guelaguetza. It is a Oaxacan type of place which serves cuisine from that distinct part of Mexico. But as you can see, the architecture is a little bit of a mismatch with what cuisine is being offered. It's actually designed in a Korean style because before Guelaguetza was here, it was actually a Korean restaurant that occupied the same very spot. So a great example, again, right, of all the different forces that are shaping the Plains of Id. One community at a time is Guelaguetza, where, again, Oaxacan food being featured, but actually it's within a Korean style building. So behind me are exemplary of many things that you'll encounter in this area known as the Plains of Id, which are strip malls. And strip malls can come in all different shapes and sizes. You'll find that they'll feature signage of many different languages based on whatever communities are occupying the areas around the strip malls at a given point in time. But this is, to me, a great example of how folks in Los Angeles, immigrant groups, different forces within this so-called plain area of the Plains of Id are actually dynamically changing the way that people embody this landscape that is known as Los Angeles. And so take a look at some of these buildings. You may encounter some great culinary surprises. If you see them, maybe apply some of the same Autopia type rules that I mentioned before, where if you see suddenly people waiting outside in a landscape where typically we see vehicles all the time, that may be a sign that there's something interesting in there that you might want to check out. With that in mind, I hope that this guide provided you with another way of seeing Los Angeles through the eyes of an architect that really challenged the notion of what LA actually is through his book that was published way back when in 1971. And I think that Banham allows us to divide and conquer LA in these 4 distinct ecologies that provide us with a bit of more context around how the different social groups and cultural groups in LA have formed ideologies and identities that persist to this very day. I hope you enjoy your next trip to LA and hope this guide was very informative in guiding you to your decisions around what to do here. Thanks so much.